I can drop a world lead, I don't even like running. You gotta run fast just to go and get some money. I'm Noah Lyles K, you know how I'm coming. I ain't going to no Olympics, I ain't running, I ain't jumping. I can make 100,000 at the crib being funny.
The Court of Arbitration for Sports dropped Erriyon Knighton's Trenbolone positive test sanction appeal yesterday. And in doing so, it confirmed everything that I essentially thought about the entire case. I was speaking to Mr. 100K a day when he brought this to my attention. And despite the whole appeal getting denied and Erriyon Knighton gets suspended for 4 years, I feel like there's still a lot of unanswered questions. So let's go back to the beginning. The beginning of last year, in February 2024, Erriyon Knighton opens up in a 200 indoor on the same track where Frankie Fredericks broke the world record. And in doing so, Erriyon Knighton was visibly bigger, stature much more broader. And it was so evident that a lot of people were, pointing it out in the comments. But who thinks about these type of things? It's track and field. Athletes lift weights all the time. They eat a lot of food. They change their diets. They take different supplements. So this is a normal occurrence. But Erriyon Knighton opened up in his very first ever indoor race of any distance. And he ran a world-leading time, 20.20, which is also the fastest opening 200 in history. And it's also almost a top 10 time all time. And this is his very first indoor race. But of course, a lot of people on the all-time list indoor, he has way better outdoor performances than him. So it clearly makes sense. And 1 month later, March of 2024, Erriyon Knighton's out of competition urine sample tested positive for Trenbolone. Both his A and B sample tested positive and confirmed these findings. His team put together an argument. Wasn't a very compelling argument, but it was an argument. They argued that he ate oxtail from a Tampa bakery, which he claimed was contaminated with Trenbolone from the beef supply chain. USADA, the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, initially accepted his no-fault defense. But World Athletics and WADA appealed. The Court of Arbitration for Sports ultimately sided with them and imposed a 4-year ban. One question for me is, how did USADA ever come to this no-fault ruling when key scientific evidence pretty much proves that this is technically impossible? The concentration of Trenbolone found in Erriyon Knighton's system was literally impossible for meat. Knighton's urine sample showed 1.3 nanograms to milliliters of Trenbolone. The tested oxtail only contained 0.1 nanograms of Trenbolone, far too low to create Erriyon Knighton's levels. Experts calculated that the levels would have required meat with 200 times more contamination than what was actually found. And a lot of other science proved that this is impossible. Trenbolone clears from the system pretty quickly. Knighton claimed to have eaten the oxtails 3 to 4 days before his test, but by then, any residue would have been negligible. And the fact that he had still showed measurable levels meant ingestion had to be far more direct. And also, this excuse that they came with was statistically improbable. The court experts emphasized that tens of thousands of tests across North America have never shown Trenbolone positive tests for meat. So to accept Knighton's claim will require an alignment of highly improbable events, misapplied implants, extreme contamination, slow clearance, all in which just simply did not happen. Overall, a 4-year ban was handed down. But in my opinion, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. He turned pro as a child. He was a childhood prodigy. But who managed his body? Who had access to his body? If he didn't self-administer the Trenbolone, in which I know he didn't, who did? A coach, a doctor, a sponsor, an agent? Who did it? And in doing so, what would they have told him, lawyer-wise, sponsor-wise, for him to not say anything in his own defense, knowing that that contamination excuse was very stupid? Why didn't he just come out knowing how young he is and knowing that he could get substantially much time taken off if he decides to just be honest and cooperate? Why didn't he tell on anybody? Why didn't he bring down the whole operation? Now, personally, I know why, but why didn't he? Fear of retaliation, protecting someone, protecting a team and a group, protecting an agent, protecting a coach, protecting something. Because you got to think, Trenbolone isn't a casual mistake. It's a hardcore anabolic steroid used for bodybuilders and cattle farmers. Where does a 19-year-old, 20-year-old sprinter even get it? And not even just that. They were saying he was fed Trenbolone and things of that nature. But who fed him this lie? Because I know that the situation went, they came to his door. He opened the door, probably not knowing that the Trenbolone was still in his system because of his fast clearance. And they misjudged his cycle. So instead of taking the missed test, he took a positive test. And in doing so, there was a large cover-up by USADA and all parties involved here in the United States. But the Chinese swimmers and the Chinese governing body wasn't letting it slide. So they pressed the issue, and they had WADA and the AIU come look into it because it was just way too stupid to not look into. And when I saw them pick up the case, I made a plethora of videos about it, talking about he was definitely going to get banned because scientifically, there's no way you can prove this happened. No way on earth. And the fact that they would even take this argument to the arbitration for sports as if it was some form of compelling argument, it would damn near a slap in the face to them people for real. So that's probably why they gave him the 4 years over anything smaller. But I'm gonna just be 1,000% honest with you. Me being around track, knowing how track works, and knowing how a lot of this behind the scenes stuff work, and not even just know how the behind the scenes stuff work, knowing a lot of these people personally, a 19, 20-year-old sprinter just doesn't go find Trenbolone, inject it into themselves, and properly know how to cycle and these type of things. So us pointing a finger at the kid who tested positive, I think that it's a much, much larger spectrum and picture in which we must look into. Because who gave him this? Who was all in agreement of giving this kid Trenbolone? Now, don't get me wrong. I know what it takes to run fast times in this sport. And we point the finger at the guys who get caught and things of that nature. But in reality, to run certain times in this sport, you just have to do certain things. And that's the bottom line. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you feel. I'm telling you what it is. To run certain times in this sport, you have to do certain things. And there's no way around it. The arbitration for sports know it. USADA know it. AIU knows it. Everyone knows it. But the thing is, they pick and choose who they let do it and who they don't let do it. So I'm curious, why wasn't Erriyon Knighton? Well, I guess technically he was allowed to do it because they took his no-fault ruling and pretty much swept the whole thing under the rug until the feds came and picked it up. But I wonder why the feds would just look into the excuse and not look into the actual parties who were involved. We know that the contamination thing is just simply off the table when it comes to logic and reasonable possibility. So since we know that that just simply didn't happen, why not get to the bottom of what actually did happen versus just 4-year ban, the kid is guilty, because we know this kid didn't inject himself with Trenbolone. This is something that we all know. All of these unanswered questions, I feel like they go after the wrong people and target the wrong people. They targeting the athletes, and I feel like the athletes suffer the most when they just doing what they have to do to run fast times in this sport under the guidance of way higher influential people. Way influential people. I feel like, personally, let's say I'm a teen prodigy athlete, and the president of my athletic federation come to me like, you need to do this, this, and this. You got to take this drug, this drug, this drug to run these times. I feel like, personally, I have to take these drugs. Not because I am forced to at gunpoint, but influence is damn near a part of being forced. That's just like when it comes to sexual assault. You don't have to be violent to commit sexual assault. You can have money, power, and fame, and just your influence alone makes it sexual assault because you didn't want to do it, but you felt like they had this much power over you to where you had to do it for real. So I think that we definitely need to look more into these cases rather than just being so surface level with it. He took this, he's guilty, ban him 4 years. Because these people ain't doing this shit by themselves. But somehow they're the only ones being punished, and they're being punished the most. When I think, personally, they're the least guilty. But that's a story for another day. Y'all let me know what y'all think down below in the comments. Until next time, I'm out.
World champion of what?
World champion of what? I can drop a world lead, I don't even like running. You gotta run fast just to go and get some money. I'm no Elias K, you know how I'm coming. I ain't going to no Olympics, I ain't running, I ain't jumping. I can make 100,000 at the crib being funny.